Welcome to Women's Wealth and Wellness Unleashed. I'm Lori Falk, and together with my three powerhouse co-hosts and a slew of thought leaders and luminaries, we're bringing you a scintillating talk show style podcast that will disrupt the worlds of wealth and wellness as we know them today. We invite you to go on this journey with us as we offer you a paradigm shift that empowers you to change your approach to these key areas of your life. Join us and discover the truth that the future of wealth and wellness begins with you.
Well, this is a kind of special welcome today, isn't it? This is our first episode of 2025. So we're into fresh energy and a whole new opportunity for this coming year. And we were kind of tuning in to how we wanted to kick off today. And what we decided was we left off last week on New Year's Eve with an episode about becoming a vibrational match in the new year for the things that we want, rather than kind of playing into the old, New Year's resolutions that by the 7th, we're into the first week of the year, are probably long gone anyway. So we decided that it would be really helpful for us to be a little bit more specific with some tips and some guidance about actually how to do that. And I was reminded that my 2024 was very, very impacted from the beginning of the year by a book that was recommended to me. It was recommended to me just about Christmas time of 2023, but I didn't come into resonance with it for a few weeks. But I think about mid-January that something said, have to get that book. So I'm going to start by showing it to you. So for those of you watching us on YouTube, you're going to actually get to see this. For everybody else, you'll be hearing about it. It is a book called The Having, Having. And I want to just share a little bit about it and why it's been so impactful for me. And it's going to spark conversation for all of us here and hopefully some inspiration for all of you. But just to introduce it, this book was written by two Korean women. So it is very much reflecting a female energy and point of view. And the fact that they're in Korea, it's kind of bringing a different flavor to those of us in the West, which I found to be really refreshing personally. And the premise of the book is that one of the women, who is a journalist, Ms. Hong, is interviewing a young woman who was considered a financial guru. And I take the word guru pretty seriously as somebody who has achieved higher consciousness in a particular way. And it seems clear to me that this particular young woman, and she's known as Soo-yoon. My Korean is not that great, but Jenny's helped me a bit because she's listening to the audio part of the book and she got the translations better than me. But basically, Ms. Hong is interviewing Soo-yoon about her wisdom, because the sub text of the book is the secret art of feeling and growing rich. So just as a bit of background, Soo-yoon has, from the age of 6, been doing research about wealth creation. So a lot of the information here, actually, really all of it is data driven. It's not just the quantum science that we're bringing to you in terms of the vibrational match. But she has studied many, hundreds of, tens of thousands of people over the years to really discover what it is that allows people to be truly abundant. And in our language, kind of be living in a world that's opposite of the lie of lack. And what she discovered and what she offers as a really simple way to approach life is from the perspective of having. If you've been listening so far and you caught our episode about the elephant in the room, the I can't afford it, we were making the observation that, the world that most of us live in has an underlying consciousness of scarcity. It's just baked into the cake. And one of the things that's explored in this book is the amount of financial resources that people have is irrelevant. Doesn't matter if you're flat broke or have considerable assets. There's a consciousness of not enough and I can't afford that just kind of permeates everything. And what it's quite an interesting story because Ms. Han's father died, and he realized that he had been living in this scarcity thing, and he told his daughter, "Go out and live your life. Enjoy it. Learn how to use money as a tool for your betterment and not something to be afraid of losing." And so she sought out the guru to learn how to do this, and it became the book. But the underlying premise and why it's called The Having, and it's so simple that it's ridiculous. And if I hadn't had a year of practicing this, I wouldn't be able to speak, about it quite this way. But it really is almost as simple as coming from a place of having rather than not having. And she starts, and it sounds silly, drinking a cup of coffee and tuning into, I can afford this coffee. Because I'm guessing that everybody listening, if you have the technology to be listening to us, you have stuff. We all have stuff. And the energy that is generated from tuning into what we have rather than what we don't have literally does bring more of that. We talk about frequency here a lot. So, we're taking it to another level, perhaps a little more sophisticated than the way they discuss it in the book. But that's been pretty life-changing for almost everybody that I have shared this with. It was shared with me by a very good friend, and I have more to say, but I know that most of us have been working with it. So, Lori, you look like you're bursting to say something. So please jump in.
Well, I am, especially because I had an opportunity just last night to practice having, and not just what I do have, but what I anticipate having. So I found out that my landlord plans to sell my condominium, and I have 6 months, so it's not like it's tomorrow, but we all know moving sucks. Come on, let's face it. It's upheaval everywhere you look, right? And there's downtime from business, and it sucks the life force energy a little bit. So I wanted to go down the rabbit hole of, oh my God, woe is me. I'm on the verge of tears on how am I going to afford this? And this wasn't in my budget and all that. And I went, wait a minute, reframe. It helps that my landlord is Indian and is very, very spiritual. I actually asked him to hold the intention with me that I would find a place that I loved as much or more, and that I would have a landlord that was as amazing as him or even nicer. And he's like, I love that. And we shook hands. So I have someone holding that intention with me. And then after he left, again, I'm not going to kid you guys. I was on the verge of tears most of the evening, but I chose, this is what I wrote down. I'm just going to read it to you. I chose to be in that energy of the having. I believe the angels will work miracles between now and then, and that this will be the beginning of a beautiful new life for Gabby and I. We will move someplace we love much more than this, to a town we will thrive in and have oodles of heart-centered friends. And the abundance will flow so significantly in the next 6 months and beyond that this will be easy peasy and effortless. And then I sat back on the couch and I imagined that it was the day before the move. And I was relaxing, having a cup of coffee. And the movers came in and they started packing everything around me. And I didn't have to lift a finger. I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't have to be packing for weeks and weeks on end. And then I imagined getting to the new place and watching them unpack it and saying, oh, I think that should go there and that should go there. And let's hang this here and let's hang that there. I'm an artist, got to hang the art right away, Anyway, I just really, really got into that joy space of what it would be like to have a move that didn't require getting the boxes and storing, stuff for months on end and getting friends to help and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm having it all this time. And so you out there in the audience are going to have to stay tuned
For your saga.
to see how effortlessly this all unfolds. So That's a great example of having.
I think it is. And I think as well, what you've demonstrated there, Laurie, is we all have choices. We have choices about how we feel, how we think, the action we take, and how we react to things. And I remember in my New Year's gone past, so, the decorations have come down, the lights have gone away. And I would literally spend pretty much the whole of January lying on the sofa, depressed. Oh, this time last month. Oh, this time last week. Oh, where are my lights? Where are my trees? Etc. Etc. And I had to have a serious word with myself with regards to don't focus on what you haven't got, focus on what you have. And I think what you've spoken about, both spoken about there in terms of the having, it's an approach, isn't it? It's a methodology for how you choose to live your life. And I spoke in a LinkedIn post today about money being an enabler. And somebody said, never really thought of it as an enabler. But actually, if you think of money as an enabler, it enables you to have choices. It enables you to make decisions. It enables and supports you in those decisions and choices. And when we come from a position of looking at things more positively, we start moving into a solution mindset. So what happened to you yesterday, Laurie? You could have stayed on the sofa going, oh my God, what am I going to do? Where am I going to live? How am I going to get over moving from here? But instead, you've moved to a place of, oh, okay, let me focus on the positive. Let me think how I'm going to make this absolutely work for me. And I think when you start to realize you're putting yourself in the driver's seat as far as what happens next, then you realize life is happening for you than the opposite approach of why is this happening to me? And I think when you make that switch, that can be a really, really powerful way to get excited about the opportunities and the choices and the decisions and the actions rather than feeling disempowered because you're allowing somebody else to make a decision for you. And that really, I
100%.
think, is really important. Yeah, really important. What about you, Jen?
Well, this book has also really impacted my life over the last year as well. And Susan and I, we have another women's group that we have done a more in-depth study on this book and going into a little bit more. But I just want to touch on a couple of points that, are very impactful for me because it is about being in a state of having. And for me, that translates into gratitude. And I think that that's a really easy way for a lot of people to understand it um, is being grateful for every moment and being very present in the moment and trying to activate that, especially when you're spending money and when you are consciously thinking about wealth in that way, even as simple as Susan was saying, as buying a cup of coffee and being so very grateful and experiencing joy of, I have this ability, I have this money to buy this cup of coffee, and experiencing that so presently in the moment. And if you continue to practice this, and I know it does sound so effortless and silly, but the more you practice it, I promise you, you are going to start to see these small little changes. And I even wrote down, because, this is kind of my mantra, and I think it's going to be my motto for 2025 is abundance grows where gratitude flows. Okay, abundance grows where gratitude flows. And for me, this is, and I listen to this book quite often. So if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have Audible, you probably listen to books on tape. Please listen to The Having. It is really digestible. It's very easy to listen to. but I think, going into this year and being very intentional with being present and practicing gratitude when you're spending, and then you'll become more aware of triggers and feelings that don't sit right. And what I mean by that is I think that the reason that most people fail instead of succeed is that they're trading what they most want for what they want at the moment. Okay, so, and I feel like that's definitely something that I have been, I succumb to a lot is, you know, that impulse buy, right? Is something that, oh, I want to spend my money on that, when I stop listening to myself, and you stop listening to the cues of, that's a little bit of a red flag. And I don't want to give too much away about the book, but if you listen to the book, she will explain to you about these amazing cues and how to kind of tap into this energy that we have when we are in these moments of spending. And so I really, I think that it's really amazing and it's really exciting to just try this, make it part of something that you want to tap into on a weekly basis, or that kind of thing. I mean, it's such a fun book, and it's really, like I said, it's a really easy read. And I think that, what I just said about when you give up for something that you want in the moment, that also kind of limits us. We then set these boundaries for ourselves because we're not, how do I say this? I think about The Big Leap, and I know, Leslie, you've mentioned this book before,
Yeah.
by Gay Henderson. It is such an amazing book, also on Audible, and I'm pretty sure it's read by him as well, which I think is really cool, to get from the author's perspective. But The Big Leap talks about this glass ceiling that we have for ourselves and these limits that we put on ourselves, and this is, part of that ego that we carry around, where the ladies, we were listening to something yesterday about the ego and how the ego changes our limitless possibilities that we have, and it narrows it down into this action that we create, and we create this boundary around something. And so the ego then forces us to, think of it one way, when really what we're doing is shutting off all of these other possibilities. So I think, something going into 2025 for me is I am going to hold the intention of all of these amazing possibilities that I have for myself, and continue on that path, on that thoughtfulness, that mindfulness, that being present in the moment. And yeah, and I'm going to keep practicing that.
And for me, the art of the possible is something that I hold really, really dear. And I think when we talk about the ego, and I spoke to you ladies about this yesterday, the way that I look at ego, and having an ego is a good thing. Having a big ego, your big ego is that part of you that is ambitious for you, that wants you to be able to achieve more, that wants you to be braver and step out of your comfort zone and see what is possible for you. But our little ego is that subconscious part of us that chips away in our ear, telling us we're not good enough, telling us we're not important enough, telling us who's going to listen to what we have to say, etc., etc. But if you lean into your intuition in terms of, I want this, but as soon as I crystallize that want, then all of a sudden something happens to pull me back into my more limited reality that stops me from taking the action that I need to take in order to do more, achieve more, be more. Because it is that limitation, and that's not greedy. That is not greed to want to have more for yourself, as long as it aligns with your values and the reasons why you want more. This isn't about stepping on other people. It's recognizing, as you said, Jen, it's recognizing your upper limit And what is your upper limit preventing you from doing and having? And how is it preventing? It's preventing because all of a sudden your little voice is saying, no, you can't go on that stage. You can't promote yourself forward. You can't write that book. You can't be on that podcast. You can't start your own podcast because. And it's once we lean into our intuition and realize that our biggest saboteur is never an external or not very likely to be an external influence. It's actually our own internal little ego that is trying to keep us small, basically. And when we recognize that, that does make us absolutely limitless. I can see you nodding in agreement, Laurie.
Absolutely. I'm going to liken this back to my little story from last night again, because I've never really fallen in love with Madison, Wisconsin. I've been out here for over 8 years, and it's not a bad town. It's just my girlfriend who's from Boston and myself who's traveled extensively can't get past the fact that we're surrounded by cornfields and not much else. And so it just is, I've never really found my tribe here. And so I have to realize that I have had this deep inner desire for the longest time of living someplace like I described, where there's more like-minded people, where there's more holistic health and wellness opportunities and fresh foods and just different things like that. And so I think it's important to point out that when we set our intentions higher, what's in the way of that needs to fall away. So as my landlord was telling me about this pending sale, I had to know, because I teach this stuff. So I'm turning inside and I'm going, well, you have been looking for a new opportunity. And I know me, I really hate moving, but I'm going to love this move. It's going to be amazing. So I'm changing that. But I would have procrastinated just so I didn't have to go through the part I didn't like, but that would have kept me playing small. And by this happening and by this falling away, it will enable me to go on this grand adventure. And so this morning when I woke up, I looked at Gabby, my little cockapoo, and I went, oh, Gabby, we're going on an excellent adventure. This is going to be so incredible. We get to pick and choose wherever we want to go and however we want to live and where we want to live and who we want to hang out with. And it's just going to be so wonderful. And the main thing is we have each other. And that's where home is. Home is where the heart is. So I just think that as our audience is going out there and setting big intentions, as I have for myself in 2024 as well, there were some big things that fell away. And as they were falling away, I did a similar process. And I said, well, if you really are on a trajectory of becoming a conscious millionaire, then that was in your way. It had to go away. So I really want you to, when things seemingly go wrong, ask yourself, was this really serving me? Or how, now that this is no longer in place, might my life improve? Look for the gift in strange wrapping paper. And Susan is nodding. Yes, yes, yes.
Well, Lori, I'm certain that what you're describing about this attitude, it shapes the way you experience your life, of course. But what we also know is it actually vibrationally determines what we attract. So it is literally a self-fulfilling prophecy that I think a number of other abundance and prosperity teachings didn't get deep enough, because the conscious mind isn't the only thing that's transmitting. It's what our vibration, really is. And, I had a story about that this week. And one of the things I want to share with the audience is this is actually very concrete, this book. So for those of you that are thinking, oh, that's more, positive thinking, but, what does that look like in my, bank account? What the guru says, what Suyun says, is that it takes really just a few weeks for people to start seeing the actual results of these things in their lives. And that's something I can look back on this past year. It being in this state of literally, she said, it's as simple as finding joy in every spend that you make, whether it's a cup of coffee to something, rather than have it be the gulp of, getting a tax bill or, all of these things, realizing I have this, I've got this. And I had an experience just within the past couple of days was just amazing. I shared it with this group. I'm going to share it with the audience now. Got an invitation to speak at a conference later this month, and realized it's a perfect opportunity for Jenny and me, because we're about to, introduce a new program. This is a women's business thing, and there's costs to doing this. So it was, a momentary, gotta come up with the funds for that. And then because I really have been cultivating this practice for a year now, and it's getting easier, to find a new normal and a new default of the neural pathways and stuff that we talk about. I was like, wait a minute. Jenny and I are offering this program. This is our audience. We're going to sell stuff from the stage here. Not only that, some of the activities that we've been up to and things that we're going to be introducing, we're going to be having sponsors for everything we do, because we're cultivating larger and larger audiences. So it occurred to me, Macy's doesn't pay for their parade. They get other people to ride on their coattails. We can do that too. So I had it in my mind, and we were literally on the phone. I was sharing that with Jenny, and I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to register us, and we're going to do this, and it's going to be very fruitful for us. And I was so excited, and I was on my way to an appointment. And when the appointment ended, I checked my email and got a 40% discount offer for this conference. Literally. So this isn't just about feel good, although it is a lot of feel good. It shows up really in the form of cash. And I have other examples. This is one of the most recent and, kind of juiciest at the moment. But Ms. So Young does promise that this is such a universal truth that when somebody chooses to practice this, and Lizzie, you mentioned something, it's not about wasteful spending or, ostentatious spending or greed, because that's not coming from joy. And she makes that distinction very clearly in the book of the inner signal of, spending money on something because, I'm trying to impress somebody else is not going to provide that having. It's not going to provide that energy that is, sustaining. But when it's something that gives me joy, and she used the example of shoes, which, spoke to me so much, because I think in
It would me as
shoes,
well, exactly.
it
Absolutely.
really spoke to me. But it's about finding the joy place, because when you're in joy, you attract more of that. And there's many quotes in the book, and I have one that I have that I've written. And actually, Lori, I'm thinking of imposing that on the golden one, on the beautiful angel that you have created, that I have as a vibrational inspiration. And the phrase that she has is, "It will happen." This is not anything that is open to chance. These are universal laws. And one of the things I love, and we will explore this in future episodes because I think it's such a critical distinction, the difference between fake rich people and real rich people. The fake ones have money, but they're still mentally impoverished. And real rich people know that it's just an energy that's always going to be flowing to them. And they don't hold on to it. They're not controlled by it. They gauge their choices based on what gives them the most sense of comfort and fulfillment. I've been seeking this for a very long time and, moving toward it myself. But just the way this was expressed, and again, I think there's something about the female angle. It cut through a lot of stuff for me. And it's something you can do. You go to the supermarket and buy groceries and just realize how thrilled you are that you can buy these wonderful organic foods. It's every little thing. I had, a month recently and my car battery died and, unexpected things. And I kept noticing how, well, I can do that. This came in unexpectedly and that happened and I can do that. And when you're in that, I can do that, there's more I can do that comes to you. So it's very concrete, and I'll even tantalize the audience by saying that Soo-Yun has identified, she says, that each human being has the capacity, like a glass, to to accumulate in their lifetime at least $7 million. But most people don't fill their glasses very much. And I've been speaking about this for a year, and as Jenny mentioned, and I'll just a little teaser, we have a private membership community that we are expanding our invitation to, where we actually study this. We've had a study group. I'm not aware that anywhere else, I haven't seen any coaching programs around it, but we've actually been exploring this in our Davina Rising Collective community, and we'll be sharing more about that, because without a conscious choice to live in this reality, I think we do fall back into where the collective is, into the lie of lack. And we've decided here very clearly that we're not going to do that. We're carving out something else. And it will
Absolutely.
happen. And it is happening because we're here.
And I think the whole thing there, though, as well, is when it comes to being conscious, it's being conscious of the action that you need to take. It isn't just about thinking, I want to be a millionaire. I want to have $7 million in the bank. It's not about that. It's making the connection between what you want, what you believe is possible, pushing that boundary, but then working out the steps that you need to take to get there. It's a little bit like, wishing to win the lottery. Unless you bought the ticket, you ain't ever going to win that lottery. So I think it is about being conscious about what you want, either believing it is possible or recognizing a limiting belief and working to overcome it. And usually the way you work to overcome it is by taking the action, regardless of your belief in it being possible, but creating the evidence that actually
But
you are
Leslie,
making it
the
happen.
importance of what you just said, I'm going to suggest that for me, at least, belief isn't quite enough. What I've been able to get to now is knowing.
Yeah.
Because when you
Agreed.
take the actions and you see the results, you have a different truth. It's not just a belief.
Yeah.
I know this is true. My soul probably always knew this was true. And I think for some of us, and I'll raise my hand here, I think that was one of the things I signed up for in this human experience this time around, was to bring that truth into this world, which is one of the threads that resulted in Women's Wealth and Wellness Unleashed. So we are thrilled to be kicking off this year with this conversation. And Jenny, you've got something else
Yeah,
important.
I think Lori does too as
Yeah.
well.
Okay.
I wanted to share with the audience too, because there is a lot of information that we are, we're only touching on the surface. And I know that there are people out there who, get nervous when they talk about money with the gate. They get nervous when they open their bank account. They don't have the confidence. We have a money confidence coach here, people. Her name is Leslie Thomas. She's here to speak to you so you can get comfortable and knowing where you're at. This is a very basic, it's the first step. We need to be honest with ourselves, and that's how you grow, is you learn where you're at and you go from there. And I know Leslie has so much to share with each of you. So please reach out, if you don't have that confidence and you are scared. And there's also a lot of tools that we all work with to break free from these, limiting beliefs. Everything is energy. We always talk about this vibrational match. How do you release, these confines that we put ourselves in? You use tools to help you break free from these negative, feelings that we have, these this idea of scarcity. These are all frequencies that we're holding, and we're constantly, we're producing them in our minds through our emotions, and they're affecting our cells. And we have tools. If you're watching this on YouTube, you seeing what I'm holding here, and I'm using microcurrent right now to affect me on a cellular level. And this is something that you can do to help, release this energy. Okay. And so you get on a different frequency. So, reach out to us about some of these amazing tools. You have us. Please let us know if there's anything that you want to know further. We're all here for everybody. Lori,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So yes, you need to get into a place of knowing, Susan. I couldn't agree more. You have to know it's going to happen. But the next step is, how are you going to feel when you have it? Because that really shifts your vibrational frequency. So when you can get into the vibrational frequency and the emotional state of how you're going to feel when you have what it is you're intending, that sends out high vibe frequency to the universe. So I liken it like this. If every thought is a prayer, every emotion is a more powerful prayer.
I like it.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, along with that, then, I would say that my prayer for all of us is that in this year, we are able to fully live these truths and to experience the kind of fulfillment and contribution and joy that we're all capable of. Because I'm guessing that everyone who's tuning into this podcast would value those things for themselves. And we are holding the space here. We're providing the tools and the conversation. And as Jenny said, there's lots more support. So this is going to be an awesome year. I am so grateful to be sharing it with my co-hosts here, obviously, and also with all of you. So any other things we want to wrap up with today?
Just wish everybody a happy new year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year
Happy
for
New Year.
sure.
See you next week.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Women's Wealth and Wellness Unleashed, where we empower women to take control of the two most important areas of their life, their health and their wealth. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another amazing woman who's ready to elevate her wealth and wellness journey. Stay connected with us by heading to our website and joining our Facebook community. All the details can be found in the show notes. Until next time, keep thriving and unleashing your highest potential.